Rohingya Muslim camps in Bangladesh are a human rights crisis on May 22. The camp is like an open prison with people suffering with depression and trauma. Basic shelter standards have not been met, and every year the camp burns down. Rohingya were not allowed to work or receive education this time around. There needs to be voluntary, safe, and sustainable camps help feed a trafficking network. We've seen tens of thousands of Rohingya trapped from Bangladesh and Myanmar to Malaysia trafficking network. Now active again with reports of force arriving into Southeast Asia. This has spiraled into the camps. And Bangladesh and Myanmar want repatriation, but current negotiations are failing. Mustafa 22. Repatriation has been a challenging problem for Bangladesh. Bangladesh and Myanmar signed a repatriation agreement. The two sides had not agreed on a concrete process or deadline. Rohingya organization to visit a safe and voluntary repatriation. Subsequent attempts fails. We remain cautiously optimistic that Bangladesh and Myanmar will build their broken trust. The Rohingya, if trust is not built among the Rohingya, voluntary repatriation will be impossible. And absent the plan, Bangladesh will crack down on Rohingya population of #22 as Bangladesh grows increasingly frustrated with the lack of repatriation developments. Suggest it is leading efforts to cultural refugees going back to avoid violently non-violent Rohingya Bangladesh secret the fact that Kumi does not see the home in Bangladesh Rohingya resettlement sites arranged by barbed wires and guards. Also, the state is being held by such financial ceasefire could collapse on any move despite their passion to return home. The Rohingya have nothing but bad options. Efforts by Rohingya expressed to return have been met with brutal crackdowns. Bangladesh authorities impose extreme measures, increasing restriction on movement, destroying camp-based markets, and plan.
Chaminade.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
The round is.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Oh, it's okay.
Wait, yeah. Is everything good?
Oh, I'm just checking the room.
Yeah, I should
Yeah.
have pressed start on tab
My
already.
bad. I'm sorry, guys.
By the way, I paused the
I'm
time.
so I apologize.
No, you're all.
It's all good. Okay, I had 4 minutes 44
Yeah.
seconds. I'll keep going. Plan justice requires Myanmar to open its border for human migration. Rohingya people are illegally excluded from Myanmar. The plan reverses that. Bizyara and CM21 considered as illegal immigrants. Rohingya is not admitted as one of the official citizen groups living in the territory of Myanmar. Myanmar as a good president policy in the era of new government, which Rohingya was recognized to imitate and make a similar policy without its issues. And that solves legal restrictions on Rohingya movements and allows for voluntary repatriation. HRW 20 Rohingya are effectively denied citizenship, leaving the state list to demonstrate compliance with readiness for Rohingya to return. The Myanmar government meant the citizens in line with the international standards of the restriction on freedom of movement sees all practices that restrict movement and livelihoods, and that forces Myanmar to make concessions and guarantee legal rights. Gate 13. Saying this can lead to interstate conflicts and addressing this can help prevent forced displacement. Migration reports represent a significant feature of the region as the region takes further steps towards free moves of people finding ways to solve problems for statelessness in the migration context must be a priority. The only solution to protect the rights of citizens migrants within Myanmar entails the amendment of the 1982 Citizenship Act, the political commitment of the government to ensure the rule of law and human rights, and Rohingya inclusion is key to social activism and political solidarity against the Myanmar junta government. Only in Mod 21, unanticipated positive change has emerged. There's been a wave of social and political reconciliation between Rohingya and other Myanmar people. Social and political fault lines seem to be shifting. Cameras for crackdowns on protesters grew. Civilians were affected by a violence similar to that committed against Rohingya. Twitter users began apologizing and expressing regret. Refugees are feeling happy to forge good relationship with Myanmar people. Willingness to do civilian leadership recognize the Rohingya suggests that social activism can trickle up to influence discourse at the national level. The National Unity Government and have fully intends to support Rohingya repatriation and the way with Myanmar's propagating an outdated 1982 Citizenship Act law. The junta's grasp power remains fierce, and the NUG has no certain path which is great to gaining control camp residents. Remain hopeful that NUG will involve the Rohingya soon. And next advantage. Myanmar's border security is extremely corrupt. Chindoon 21's corruption at border checkpoints is flourishing. Again, things have changed dramatically since the military coup in February. Corruption at the border security checkpoints has increased 200-fold within just 8 months. Life at the border control immediately changed after the coup, with travelers being treated disrespectfully. The junta and the checkpoints become hellhole. Robbery and corruption have been the best survival methods for the military release and their cronies. And bribery at the border is a key source of income for the junta government. Clapham Tower 22. Revenue from organized crime via border security guard force has become a key pillar of its survival strategy. Reaps massive profits from growing criminal empires. Current regime dismantled the country's police force. Organized crime will spread to new parts of the country that pose a global security threat. And that funds state violence and organized crime, which incites poverty and violence against the local Burmese population. Rural 18. Listed commentaries first, local conditions for ways, political instability, violence against ethnic minorities, environmental concerns, and stifling of the economic development, criminal activity controlled by the Chaminade, Myanmar's integrating itself into the black market and illicit economies that sustain the junta that undermine the country's economy. Income from the transnational crime rate has also permitted ethnic cleansing and genocide. The country holds the third worst deforestation rate and are vulnerable to flood, droughting, and disease. Myanmar turned heavily to illicit trade. It does not contribute to sustainable development. The escaping impoverished conditions is nearly impossible. Framework. The standard is decreasing structural bonds preferred first. Phenomenal introspective proof pleasures good and pain is when we introspect data from our eyes and ears, such as whether one sees or smells food or predator. We use the same part of the brain that introspects on hedonic tones that identifies their moral relevance. Intuitions are whether the foundation base for any argument. Theories that contradict our intuition most likely false, even if we can deductively determine why. Second, no intent first decision. If we foresee a consequence, then it becomes part of a deliberation, which makes the intrinsic extraction system we intended to have as the third. Reject low probability, high magnitude scenarios. There are an infinite permutation of how extinction could occur, which would freeze policy decision making. It's better to talk about real real-life issues. 4, psychoanalysis is infinitely aggressive and non-falsifiable, and 2, abstract. Gordon 1, psychoanalysis degrades scholarship and action as a discourse now, which metaphor passes for reality. There can be no test for claims that were pioneers to derive their ideas in the context of individual patient that can be examined in the lab or therapeutic encounters. Outside, there can be no verification process in the further from the individual patient. The less dispersed psychoanalytic ideas can have the outside therapeutic encounter. Anything can be true if everything should, nothing can be false, and nothing can be true. Free association leads nothing to analysis, but to more free association. Underview. First, use reasonability and oneness interest. A point times 2. The app can fairly contest oneness interest because there also only form is the oneness, so reasonability is key to check back. Second, B point is a substance is key to shit-test and survives spamming, blibbing, oneness shells, and winning a risk of office on one of them in 2 row, which forces substance engagement and education. Second, FRBI's 8-point topic deters frivolous and violation and forces to think twice about before skewing the oneness to say no each shell is another display in the 200 hours on reversibility since every shell causes a substance since we can't get a B point reciprocity. He is a unique avenue to the about that the app can access makes a structural unfair without the RVI. Third, interpretation. The neg must fairly prove the truth of saving justice requires open borders for human must prove the truth of the saving justice does not require open borders for human migration. I'll change it in the new doc. To clarify, under the all negative arguments prove the truth of the saving. 8 point is research proving the converse means that they have to actively search how recent the plan is validated. Their model ensures that they never have to research different topics or due process. It gives them an infinite number of objections. People stress you towards first you get a variable count. If not bounded by the rest, means you can have access to more lists that have more truth and you know. Second, you can do 6 minutes of the one you see by shifting the to several layer that app can just interact with. I didn't read drop the debater or the RBI argument.
Give checks.
Also, do I in the text I meant justice is not required. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give checks.
Yep.
Alright. Start now. Why vote F?
Because I propose a good idea, and I think that the judge should vote on a good idea, especially if I provided a good framework to do so.
Okay. Let's talk about the underview.
Yeah.
I guess what are some violations to converse theory?
If you read like a nib, like for example, if you read like a Hobbesiancy or like a determinism, or like if you read like skepticism, you're not necessarily proving the truth of the idea of the converse of the resolution.
If someone said like a slur, and like how would the 1 and C be able to react to that if they can only prove the truth of the or the falsity of the resolution?
Wait, can you repeat the?
Like if the 1 and C did something like really problematic, how would the 1 and C be able to react to that if they can only prove the falsity of the resolution? Like pre-fiat arguments. Yeah.
No, this argument is mainly just to deter like things like skep, for example.
So if there's
if you want to point out something problematic that the 1EC does at like a performative level, I mean, I guess you can make that argument. And
alright, so if you do something
performative
performatively bad, I can contest that.
Like if you're going to read a critique and it's going to be like pointing out the performance of the 1EC and say the epistemologies, I mean, I can make fair arguments as to how much my theory or argument will take out your critique, for example.
Okay. I guess let's talk about some of the paradigm issues.
Yeah.
On reasonability, what's the bright line?
The reasonability is I'll defend like Lincoln impact turn ground.
Okay. This Gordon card, what are the warrants?
Yeah, it basically says that psychoanalysis only warrants itself at the individual level. So, for example, like I guess psychoanalysis might work for the patient, but it doesn't necessarily. You can't necessarily expand it to the political will or political discourse or anything. So you can't psychoanalyze me, especially you don't know me.
Okay.
I just met you, so if you're trying to make a psychoanalytic claim, that's kind of weird.
Okay.
It's really weird.
What is structural violence?
Structural violence is just pain that is. So there's like society, and then there's some sort of law or some sort of structure, ongoing process that constantly produces pain and suffering for people.
Okay. I guess we can talk about the advantages.
Yeah.
Organized crime.
Yep.
What are the warrants for why organized crime is bad?
Because there's 4 warrants. First is because of political instability. Second, violence against ethnic minorities. Third is it creates environmental destruction. And fourth is that it stifles economic development.
How do you weigh under structural violence?
You can use simple util stuff, but you can't like use things like high magnitude, low probability scenarios like.
How do you weigh between 2 types of structural violence?
You can use things like scope, magnitude, time frame, like the same stuff, but you can't expand it to like extinction scenarios or something like that, or like nuclear war.
Okay. Order is 4, then case.
Okay, I'm gonna flow from here because I have to charge.
Yeah, no problem. Let me send it, then I'll
framework then the advantage?
It's going to be a hedge, so you could probably just flow at the top. Then it's going to be the underview, then the framing, and then advantage 5 time. Probably won't.
Wait, the underview, the framing, and the advantage is like bottom top.
Wait, let me send it, then I'll say it again.
Okay.
For a hedge, underview, framing, advantage.
Okay. Sounds good.
I just sent it.
Alright.
I just got it. Okay, let me just download it.
Alright.
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm very good.
Yeah.
Alright.
Interpretation. If the firm specifies anything other than the exact resolution, they must provide a counter to the applicant to clarify an author says we should not do your violation. They don't prefer 1 point limits or everything. So you get the voucher, at least it pushes you to uncontestable arguments. The limit to verify it's good, it's fair, so prove a counter argument to which if the CSA can tell us what your FCs and how it's implemented, because we don't know about it, they can't deal because they delineate these things through more research for you. Contest your own viewpoints, encourage more in depth answers. I can't provide responsive. It's like a responsive fairness. It's interesting activity. Education resources on debate. No one will about method debate. To drop the barriers to abuse competing in terms. A point visibility is arbitrary and vice versa. Invention. People calls the race at the top of the best norm. No guys able to logically know for proving meet the burden of being fair. Logic always is superior or valuing any other argument. People orgasm incentivized being theory. Practicality using maximum use of practice. Second off. Interpretation of mirrors must not depend on the hypothetical implementation of explicit act or action requires a state of verb, which means the resolution of referendum on the nature of justice rather than specific policy action. North Coast 09. In English, state verbs used to describe a state of being. These verbs do not show action or a process that the situation illustrated by state verbs are unchanging. Common examples include require violation if a man the actor and implement own words policy, which is a resolution, or their extra vote night for limits of ground interest. But if it's not particular advantage, grant an extra level enforcement mechanism which corrects research burdens while spending core generic. So when semantics outweighs safe when precision, they are arbitrarily just some words which checks around preparations. There's no stasis points. We want jurisdiction judge knows it doesn't have jurisdiction bony after it wasn't legitimacy, but durability, grammatical correctness means the debaters have effective academics and professionals. 3 fill out great rates have better ethical subject shaping critical thing nowadays on unique consolidates which the policy and unlock on the NATO topics also your offense. TBA read to fill up the firms their own boards are just useful for it doesn't depend implementation cross like paradigm issues. Third off. This error is consistent with the agricultural imperative. Theoretical justifications outweigh 1 point framework are essentially T-debate, so the word all truth, the better model debate is what matters. 2 point turn substance doesn't matter true philosophy is if it can't be engaged with others impossible to learn from even if Kyle was correct, we shouldn't use for a lot of, even if structural balance was correct, we shouldn't use that philosophy in debate specifically. 3 point solutionary rule we want structural balance is unfair, which means all our subset arguments should be presumed false. The only reason that they seem to be true is because it was impossible to gauge in the first place. 4 point no 1 AC stance means they shouldn't get 1 year clarification. 5 point reject new 1 year framing justifications. 8 point new 1 year new 1 year justifications to any 1 AC framing offense. We want introducing the philosophy more rigorously tested. Prefer intent-based framework. For intent-based frameworks, 1 point frameworks keep process with justification of arguments. 1 we should abide by the ethical theory presuppose that we own ourselves in the first place. 2 point political education. Politicians have to understand the categorical imperative in the process of deontology in order to know part of the what to provide citizens, e.g. German government's proof. If 3 point research disparities are from interest-based while some of a comparative advantage. Debates come about quality governments rather than quality. Their model cards of small school states prep every unique advantage under each every counterplan every data corresponds to each of them. 4 point resolvability. The debates create a massive weighing and link term using context easily resolvable because of the question of whether or not it violates. Now negate 1 point contradiction conception. Boards are sharp divisions between nations that are meant to keep individuals out. 2 boards is a contradiction. It is no longer a board of individuals or free transgression. 2 point keeping 8 point unlimited migration allows for the depletion of resources in particular areas such that 1 individual no longer has access to public good. That requires the right to restrict migration on the basis that since no member would agree to no longer have access. People also have an unconditional right to earth that destroys the entire concept of personal public property, since every one individual can claim right to access to any particular object, meaning the right to property meaningless. 3 but the Constitution of the Omniller requires borders. Benefit 12. Every self-legislation also acts self-constitution can be divided by these laws defining itself by drawing boundaries, territorial as well as civic. They will can extend only on their borders. Those who are full members of the sovereign are distinguished. Interpretation: affirmative teams must not renew offensive one year related to a new framework. Recontextualize or way arguments under a different framework. Return the one-seat framework. One might fill clash of time. Anything else allows them to concede all of our framework interaction. Just goes performance terms against the RNC, which always fills the only thing unique to the entire always unquantifiable universality. Can't get back to time loss since only way to measure abuse. Two wins skew. They have an inherent advantage on the contention dates. They get 2 hours spent, so they can easily judge psychology in the contention debates and don't err to one side. Through in-depth or breadth prevents the debate from being split over 2 issues, i.e. the framework and substance since in-depth testing is key to redefine ideas, while vague debates result in inept clash. For when playing solely because the topic doesn't actually engage you, but defense on the contention level. Fourth off. The subject of merchant laws consider to be unable to express desire to the language. Attribute subject in this block rank concentrates to the law subject. This is the role of the best return versus advancing make out 13. Subject of merchant laws, the lack of the relation subject to the world, when subject is a language, really indirect relation with object world, alienation of privacy, language is sacrifice, the lack of language, the subject is not found perfectly satisfying, only self-wounding, the initial sacrifice versus desire warrant to the law subject, but constitutively lost end. Therefore, when debate is a non-emotional response to the world, the words they have impacts their importance, that collapses meaning in ethics, Robinson 12. The being juxtaposed as system ideal or the fact not being never for security, never neutral, and also informational stand, the form, not the content, during all the understanding neutralizing civil emotional response, fears, enjoy the spectacle, their own passion, reducing everything inside, become the real loss subject, melancholy is the brutal satisfaction for the loss of intensity and meaning, especially things that disappears like psychosis, reality is an accessible end. The forwarding of the resolution is a call for recognition, instead change violent policies, the ones he becomes obsessed and dependent on them, number 12. But the level of rhetorical form, the demand is a demand for recognition form, our repressive form claims to change the purpose is to sustain the role of the form requires the system continue to act surveys, sustains logic and affirmation of the hegemonic order. This is territory driven for policy, the addiction is bound with dependency, otherwise identity will collapse. The agency that produces dependent on the hegemonic order, the institutional and medically legitimate end. They show the possibility for politics, ethics, and the value to life in their offensive form and absent engagement with affect and desire lose right things, give us meaning, cloud controls internal to all their impacts. 14. Some algorithms repress all information, includes politics, sees the configuration, subsidies, also obtain that data, some be organized separately. The individual service are first converted to the so result in research and task society. Upon source of level, the safe space end. But negative to embrace the lack. This requires being open to anxiety occurs with the encounter from the real, the other, and breaks up fancy and drives me down. 13. Alternative means embracing anxiety. The law subject provides the subject with direction. The encounter with producing anxiety, and not mediate through some box social subject and also relevant with that combined described identity. Skip the last part for now. That isn't scrolling down. Alright, case. Skip the head for now. Just go to the other view. Off board and 1.0 impact. God love racism being bad, etc. are falsifiable, but they still shape the way we encounter the world and control. Our ethic means we can still use psychoanalysis. 2. Psychoanalysis is both falsifiable and accurate, current, and RE5. Not psychoanalysis have been judged on the methodology and periodicity of a psychoanalytic concept. Neuroscience research indicates psychoanalytic concepts of pressure or oppression, project identification. Psychoanalysis has been supported by empirical research, DSM X2 pathology. 3. This part specifically talking about clinical psychoanalysis, not structural psychoanalysis, which are our theory. We're not looking into specific impacts of language on individuals, rather the structural impacts on which we still use psychoanalysis on a structural level. Then on the reasonability argument, use of being interest. 1 reasonability collapses to being interest. They use an offensive as paradigm for bright lines. 2 reasonability is arbitrary and by search and invention, which goes to the strongest internal defense, takes the debate out of the bear's hands. 3 reasonability leads to a race to the bomb because people push the bright lines lower and lower to get away with abuse. That weighs on cyclical abuse, which always in scope because it affects more debaters. Skip the fourth point for now. On RVIs, on it that deters frivolous theory. 1 point term RVIs chill legitimate theories. The bears will be afraid for their opponent go for a frivolous RVI. This is worse than minimizing frivolous theories, as they can be dealt with quickly, but because it's not a legitimate argument, judges don't want to vote on it. 2 point frivolous theory we saw other ways. For example, reasonably. Skip the 2 point. The 2 point. Skip that for now. On the 2 point reciprocity, you can just read 1 AR theory, which solves all your offenses. You're also able to access the theoretical layer. Then on the converse theory, top level they say in CX that we can. Read theory if you're morally repugnant, which means the only violation to the converse theory would be the alternative to the critique. And insofar as we win when you see performance is bad, then we still get access to the critique. Even still on the research argument, one point we should be able to test the one I see with multiple different methods. 2 is repugnant. If the one I see says slow, we should be able to read theory against that would violate commerce. No, they'll interrupt you. 1 point, it's inevitable. Every argument inevitably uses your strategy. 2 when you get to decide the app and get infinite fronts, which means we should get creative. As 3 when you can just read 1 AR theory solves all your options, and you get access to the theoretical layer. Didn't read. I didn't read anything after the underview stuff, and I didn't read the hedge at the top.
And you didn't read the framing stuff too.
No.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Starting now. What is the status of the
Condo.
Okay, it's all condo. Okay.
Yeah. I also didn't read the last part in the K.
Yeah. Okay. The critique.
Yeah.
What is it mean to traverse the fantasy?
So traversing the fantasy means to sort of look at our drives and desires and see how those shape the way we view the world. For example, we say the 1AC
is demanding for an impossible desire, i.e., the Lumberg evidence indicates that the 1AC is a
Wait,
demand.
okay. So traverse fantasy. Great. Can we take ethical action under your roll of the ballot and alternative?
Sure, you can take ethical action, but it needs to be situated within ethical desires. Our argument is that the 1AC is an impossible desire that is trying to fulfill, i.e., the 1AC positions
Wait, what
Myanmar.
about the 1AC is impossible?
So the 1AC brings up, for example, like violence in Myanmar and says that that's bad. We say that the demand on the judge to recognize that is a demand for recognition and sort of creates a violent dependence on suffering and structural violence because we sort of become attached to that violence to occur so that the judge can keep giving you recognition to keep endorsing the affirmative and sort
Wait,
of
why is it bad for me to endorse the affirmative?
because it creates an unethical attachment to that suffering. Because
Why is it unethical for us to attach ourselves to good action?
well, you don't take the action. When you vote there's
Okay,
no
so-
less structural violence in Myanmar.
So
Our
let me ask
argument
you
is
this.
that
So let me ask you this: when Roe v. Wade was overturned and people started talking about us trying to do something in like the Supreme Court, was that a bad thing? Were we attaching ourselves unethically to an ethical action when we do that?
is a question of your orientation with that policy.
You can say any buzzword you want, but what I'm asking you is does that mean that under your alternative role we can never talk about good stuff or like important stuff like the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
No, we can obviously talk about that stuff. It's a question of how we are talking about
Then
that.
how
We say-
come we can't talk about the suffering and the genocide against Myanmar people, especially when
Yeah.
the affirmative has not done anything to perpetuate the violence itself?
So there's two links here. The first argument is the Robinson evidence, which is that being as we are not specifically in Myanmar and we're not actually able to change any of those politics, we become sort of a sadistic viewer of the suffering in Myanmar,
How do you
and we're
know?
not actually
How
able
do you
to
know
solve anything.
how I think? You don't know me.
I'm not trying to specifically psychoanalyze you. I'm making a structural claim about the use of
You're making a political psychoanalysis of me.
That's not a structural psychoanalysis. I'm not
Okay.
like specifically looking in your
That's
mind to
fine.
see what you're exactly
Let's
thinking.
go
We're
to-
just looking at the orientations of the 1AC.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go to the okay. So you see, theoretically, your framework is better.
Yeah.
So does that mean that we should debate under your framework?
Under the standard, sure, we'd say the critique is on a higher layer.
Okay, no. Let's say I beat the critique. On the NC itself. So if your NC is theoretically fairer, how come I can't read offense under it?
So the argument is that reading new offense in the 1AR removes all the 1AC theoretical offense. We've made a claim that the 1AC framework is bad for debate, and we've read a new framework. We say you should be able to read new offense of the framework.
Got it. I'll start. Wait, it's 5 minutes of prep, right?
I
think TOC is 5 minutes. Okay, so I'll start now. Does the critique outweigh theory?
Yeah.
Okay. Why does requires a stative verb?
So it's saying requires is requires as a verb is describing a state of affairs. It's not necessarily implying an action. The resolution isn't calling on any action to sort of be taking. It's rather just saying this is a state of affairs and we should evaluate it accordingly.
Wait, but why is requires meet that?
So stative verbs don't imply any action. The Nordquist evidence indicates that requires is a stative verb. So just as it requires in and of itself doesn't require any action, but rather is just saying to evaluate a state of affairs.
Okay. Okay, so I have 30 seconds left. Order is gonna be wait a minute, let me send the doc first. It's gonna be new shell, and then it'll be the case, then it's the first shell, or actually, no, it's my shell, then their shell, then their second shell, and then it's case, and then the critique, and then condency.
Okay. So it is new shell.
Yep.
There's a new off.
Yeah.
Then it's CSA.
Yeah.
Then it's the the Nordquist T shell.
Yeah.
Then it's the framework. Then the advantage. Then critique. Wait, order of the case page.
On case, it'll mainly just be the underview.
The underview.
Yeah.
So underview, and then psycho, then Kant.
Yeah, basically. I'll like signpost. Need be.
You say maybe he'll signpost? Say signpost. No, I'm just kidding. Well, not kidding about that, but yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Okay.
So we're starting with a new shell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. Starting now. Interpretation of the negative may not read con TGFs, TGFs outweigh, and F may not read offense under their framework. The violation, they do all of these things on the 1 and C and a bunch of blipping analytics. First is infinity B's. A point is clash. I can't engage with any of their offense because of the fact that if they recon TGFs, that means that theoretically that means that all the frameworks are straight up true, and that I can't read any sort of like substantive education against that. So assuming all the theoretical arguments are true, that means that I can see that and TGFs out, which means I can't read anything against it, and affirmative I read offense, which means that I literally do not have any offense under their framework. Now they're going to make claims about how I could read other layers, but reject all these arguments because debate has to assume that we're engaging under a fair layer to debate about the substance of the topic, not necessarily other stuff, which means that we have to set the best norms, and they're not doing that. People in this norm setting, this kills norms because that means that I cannot set better norms against them, because that means that I'm skewed away from reading literally any arguments against them. Which means I'm always going to lose independently. The F always losing is always on magnitude and is an independent voter, because it means that I literally cannot do anything against the arguments, which means this all just theory shell also comes first as a meta theory shell, because if any of your spikes are true, that means that this shell is also not true. That also means don't allow new cross applications against the theory against their shells on this shell, because I'm indicting them. First they drop the debater because of the fact that I'm indicting your abuse, and that means that this theory shell comes first, and also competing interests can recently with Vegan arbor shell. I can see that, and no RVIs because there's a 6-minute tuner that they can dump on this shell. Now onto the new off. On the counter trip, we don't need a CSA counter trip. The F must provide a counter solvency advocate in the 1 year. I dropped the link first. Skew gives a alpha 2 to 1 to burns, so you don't have to put it in a CSA to each negative position. Second, SSC solves research. We go to the other side of the non-neg, which from the after rejects like infinite rigors. There's no writing for when we can stop specking things. In that, which causes substance crowd in infinite theory debates for Afflex. To speak in the dog wall, the neg is reactive. It only has 3 minutes to deal with the 2 in our collapse independently. Afflex cross applies and takes on most of their theory specs on the content and see about how they're skewed against, which is straight up wrong. Also, the line below, you see limits, we just reach generics, which is also all of your offensive shiftiness. So crossing solves these arguments. So research argument, I did research already. I don't need to do more now. On the next shell. Now, there's no counter-interpretation. I need explicit action from the affirmative for shiftiness. This causes shiftiness otherwise, because that means that the affirmative can defend like something really vague from a fill affirmative, and that means that if you want to read like a util decide, you can't really do that, because you don't know what the affirmative is actually defending, and they can just re-clarify in the 1 area, which always your limits argument, because you can't have limits if none of your offense will apply in the first place. Independently requires means need for a particular purpose, which from dictionary.com, which always your arguments, because you don't even justify what it requires is a stative verb. Semantic class of pragmatics, because semantics only matters because that's some pragmatic meaning to it, and the fill-in argument is straight wrong, because we can also access fill-in under a specific resolution, and the TVA is straight and wrong because we also use it too. Go to the case. Extend Gordon. Extending Gordon, psychoanalysis, infinite regressive, non-falsifiable. Their arguments are not applicable because Gordon actually indicts our Grant and Harari 5 evidence, because we're saying that, yes, you can say that psychoanalysis is true at the patient level, but we're saying that you can't apply it to the political level, which is what cross-ex proved. You see there's many non-falsifiable things like God. We're not claiming God or anything is true. The affirmative is very grounded in reality. You see that you saw how political? Yes, we're saying that political can't apply because you can only prove that it's true at the personal level, which is straight up wrong. Extend RVS, extend topic education, you would misunderstand the argument. We're saying that you're skewing for topic education, and that you can read frivolous violations, not frivolous theory shells, which is bad. Go to the critique. Counter-roll the values, vote for better, anything else is self-serving and arbitrary. Now extend going for permutation, do both. We can embrace like and do the affirmative. They can see cross-examination that the alternative would probably allow ethical action, otherwise it'll be extremely repugnant, which means that the affirmative is a good idea, and if anything, turn all of the arguments. Debate provides skills to solve real-world violence, which is good, and also there's no I don't cause violence, which means even if I am ethically attached to violence, that does not mean that I recreate it, which means there's no impact to the argument. The value to life argument turn. This provides hope to people that we can actually solve things like Roe v. Wade, or we can solve things like Myanmar violence, which are good ideas, otherwise you can't talk about them, and there's no hope for actions, which means the alternative cannot solve. Independently, go to the contency. They say I can't have new reclarification for the 1 year, but I can just respond but I have to justify my argument by responding to these arguments, which always all of your arguments on sort of magnitude, or otherwise you'll always win in the 2 and R. Okay, I didn't read any of the comp terms.
Okay. 5 minutes starting now. Reasons to reject the team is just a shell, right?
Yeah.
Alright. Can you send the text of the? Let me just.
Yeah, I got you. Actually, I'll just email it.
Yeah.
Wait, can you take prep?
Yeah. I'm not taking prep right now. I'll just wait for it to get the shell with it.
Sure. I'm gonna assume people know these acronyms. Okay, so for the sake of prep, this is the text.
Okay. I'll just start taking prep when I get it.
Alright.
was the response to the con C?
I only responded to one of the theory argument that like no one of your new clarification justifications. I just made an argument that I need to be able to respond to your arguments, or else the 2-1R can just extend something and just outweigh.
Okay. Was there an RVI on the shells?
Yeah, I send it topic ed.
Topic ed.
Yeah.
Was there a warrant for no RVIs on 1AR theory?
Yeah,
What
because
was
you
the
have
warrant?
6 minutes in the 2-1R to dump. That's a big time skew.
Standards on shell, infinite abuse, A point clash, B point norm setting.
Yeah. Well, they're more like weighing arguments. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You not judging? I said you're not judging?
I have like to
Gotcha.
justify I fucked up and walked too far away from this.
Wait, what is that?
So apparently, if you
It's attached to like your phone?
I
Or
guess.
why does it matter if you walk away?
Yeah, I don't know.
No doc. Order is RVI, new TGF shell, constancy.
Okay.
Okay. The RBI stuff on the underview. Okay. Then the meta theory shell. Then Kant. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready.
2 framing issues on the RBI debate. 1 point, if you didn't catch every argument for the RBI in the 1 AR, then you shield in the blow in the 2 AR. 2 point, you should shield the 2 AR against 2 AR extrapolations. You don't have a 3 AR. So I'm going to go for the logic argument. It's logical for you to win because you are fair. It's a basic burn for both sides to be fair. So you shouldn't be worried if your logic outweighs the arguments. 8 point sequencing is a meta constraint on all your argumentations. So all arguments presuppose logic. B point itself defeating saying logic is wrong. Use logical reasoning to do so, which means the RBI necessarily come first. You you don't necessarily get access to an RBI, so you don't win for beating back the argument. We're also going to go for the debating argument. Giving them an RBI allows them to debate theories and to win, since they know they can collapse that way. So magnitude justifies them being infinitely abusive and still win debates. Negatives would be deterred from reading theory altogether, which always any small 1 AR times used on the topic and argument. You can extend the term that RBIs chill legitimate theories. The Bears are afraid of their opponent always going for an RBI, which means that we never get to the best norms because the Bears are always scared of going for the RBI. Even if you win, even if the shell is frivolous, you'll always just beat it back. 'Cause it's a bad shell. Like I agree, CSA is a dumb shell. You were able to beat it back quickly. It means you don't need an RBI do because you just didn't have to spend a lot. You didn't have to spend a lot of time on it. At worst, just shield the 2 and R against this because there's going to be brand new extrapolations. You shouldn't let a 5-second blip on the 1 AR turn to an entire new 2 AR when they spend 5 seconds on a condency. The new shell. Reading TJFs in the 1AC solves all of your offense. You still get access to the TJFs in the 1AC, and you can still access the layer. It's not my fault you didn't read TJFs in the 1AC. And only read substantive justifications. Now, some top-level paradigm issues on this shell. Drop the argument on the NCC shell. That was the shell, the bottom of the NC, specifically on shells on paradigm issues. It's the most real world, so you wouldn't give us a death penalty for jaywalking, and allows us to go back to substance, which outweighs we live too much to debate the topic. Reject meta theory. It's infinitely aggressive, so we keep reading theory on theory, which outweighs into mega on the judge's final jurisdiction. Reject negatively word interprets. They fail to tell the Bears what to do instead, which means that there's no access to norm setting because I don't know what to do. Their shell only says what we can't do, which means we don't have any actual norms. We never know what we can actually do because it's negatively wording. Counter inter violation. 1 point inclusion. Any reason why any reason why is more inclusive would prove a net benefit because it proves that the framing is good for inclusion. B point TJFs make it more accessible to novices because they don't have to go through dense philosophy. I.e., novices can make arguments about why their framework is necessarily better for debate, which means it's more inclusive for novices. 2 point infinite abuse. Their interpret just by frameworks like ILAW definitely flow one way. It makes it impossible to turn the framework. With TJFs, you make reasons why your specific framework is best for debate. While your specific framework is best for debate, which means we still get access to debate the topic in offense. 3 point neg flex. They get first and last words, which means this means that they're always going to be able to beat our syllogism with 2 AR judge psychology, which means we should be able to get creative outs like TJS to sort of boost our syllogism and shield us from 2 AR outs. 4 point critical thinking forces you to think about how your framework functions within debate, which controls their internal link to real world XP. Learn how to apply philosophies in real life now on the shell proper. On the clash argument. 1 point clash is inevitable. You can just beat our theoretical justifications in the 1 AR, but just saying our theoretical justifications are just saying our theoretical justifications are wrong. We don't stop you from responding to the framework. We just say that our framework necessarily comes on a higher layer. 2 point 1 AR theory solves all of your offense. You're able to access theoretical layer in the 1 AR, proven by the 1 AR shell, which means you're still able to access the theoretical layer, which means you can just engage with the NC specifically, and you can still engage on the theoretical layer. 3 point reading TJFs in the 1AC solves all your offense. You're still able to access the TJF layer. You just didn't do it in the 1AC. You shouldn't punish me because they didn't read a good framework. Then on the norm setting argument, 1 point you can set norms to 1 AR theory, which means you still get access. 2 point. 2 point drop the argument solves all your offense on the NCC shell because you can still read offense. It's not my fault. You only got to the NC with like 10 seconds left in the 1 AR, which means you can still read offense under a 3 point. You can set norms by reading TJFs in the 1AC. Elmer, I just spent like 4 minutes on this shell. You should really shield the 2 and R against insane extrapolations. Now let's go to the TJF shell. Going for TJFs, they conceded a bunch of reasons why TJFs first. We're going for the substantive argument that TJFs necessarily turn substance because the question of engaging in the first place. Philosophy is impossible to engage from. We never actually learn. I never actually learned how that framework functions. So even if the substance is good, we can never actually engage in the first place, which goes into internally into classes. We're only able to actually engage with the framework if we have TJFs. We're also going to go for the exclusionary rule. We've won that structural balance is unfair, so all their substantive arguments should be presumed false. The only reason it may seem true because we were possible to gauge structural balance in the first place. Now, at top level framing issues, you draw a strong line from the wire to 2 AR. You shouldn't let new 2 AR weighing or extrapolation arguments so they don't have a 3 AR to respond. It lets them stand back all the way to 2 AR, creates late breaking theory debates and prevents us from robustly testing norms. Now, for our framework, we're going for 2 standards. The first is resolvability. Other debates create a mess of weighing and link terms, but using context easily resolvable. It's a question of whether or not it violates, i.e. structural balance debates become extremely messy really quick. They say in 6 that it's a question of weighing on the utility, which leads to link terms, impact terms, etc., which makes it impossible to resolve debates. Context is easily resolvable because it's just a question of whether or not you violate the categorical imperative, which is easily Easily resolvable. Resolvability of voter says anything else maximize the probability of judge intervention, which minimizes the Bell's determiner for the better debate, which is his constitutive purpose. Constitutivism outweighs so it's an inescapable role, and we have as participants, and it's our prior question. The second argument we're going to go for is performativity. Them debating about structural events, they can seize the validity of our ethical differences, requires them to have the freedom and reasoning capacity to argue in the first place. Formativity proves the debate with nonsense that our affirmative community controls strong external link to inclusion, so we literally include every debater. This outweighs on reversibility. Their impacts are reversible. Risk of exclusion against the bears cannot be remedied since the damage has already occurred. That will extend the offense here, extend the contradiction in conception argument. Borders are sharp division between nations, which means that they're meant to keep individuals out. Open borders are contradictions. It allows individuals to transgress the borders. It allows individuals to transgress the borders, but that defeats the constituent purpose. It destroys the constituent purpose of borders in the first place.
Okay, 3 minutes starting now. I mean, not 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Right now.
Jordan, to fill my water, bro.
Hey, did that actually get shot with BB gun yesterday? God damn. I think was it racially motivated, or was it just people trying to shoot you just cause people in Kentucky?
It is the Kentucky.
Okay,
I'm sorry about that, man.
okay. Orders is going to be the theory shell.
Okay. Is there a particular place you're is it just straight down, or is there an argument you're starting with that isn't? Like reading TJFs into 1AC solves?
It'll be like an overview, and then I'll like kind of go top down signposts as I go.
Hang on, let me clear some space. Alright, cool.
Okay, ready?
Alright, yeah, I'm all good.
Okay. First of all, they answered the wrong shell. We are against a combination of their arguments, which means that all of their arguments of as to why Kant is necessarily true or why Kant is more inclusive is not applicable because those arguments are specifically to TGFs. But we're saying that assuming their TGFs are true, that means that we should have been able to read offense under your TGFs because they're theoretically true according to your arguments, which also means that, but you prohibit from doing that, which means we're indicting that kind of practice. Second, so you can see that our preemptive argument that was we made in the shell that we shouldn't be forced to engage in theory because the whole point of setting norms and theories that when you read theoretical arguments that we have to look at, then we have to try to we should try to minimize theory debates in the future. For example, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to read this theory shell, and if you think it's bad, then that means you can just read things in one-year theory. That's obviously bad because theory is supposed to allow good substantive engagement, and which means that we have to assume that your TGFs are true, and if your TGFs would and if even if your TGFs are true, if you still prohibit things like good 1EC practice, that's bad. Also, answering you said read TGFs, 1EC solves all of my office. No, it doesn't. First of all, is that I didn't read TGFs, and it's unpredictable that I should have done so because most 1ECs don't necessarily do that. Secondly, is that you can literally beat it back in the 6-minute tour. You can see the time scale argument from the one-year shell, which is that you have 6 minutes in the 2 and you have 7 minutes in the 1EC, which means hours of magnitude, which means I can't, which means I'm skewed away from even doing that in the first place independently. The drop the debater. First of all, I'm already skewed from this debater, which means I can't win. The second is that there's not a death penalty. It's a combination that you actively engage in, which is necessarily by you said reject meta theory. No, we can go check as to how far we can look at meta theory, which means that my meta theory shell is legitimate. Now extend the interpretation of the negative may now read con TGS outweigh and F may not read offense. Extend the violation that they do all these things and this cause infinite dBs because that means that assume that your con TGS are true. I meet all of your standards. That means that assuming I meet all of your standards, I can't do anything against it because of the fact that I literally can't read any offense under it, which means that it kills things like clash. Because I can't engage in you also can see the norm setting argument. This means that it's an independent voter because I always lose under this argument. Now you can now independently. I want competing interests, which means that I have to win a risk of offense that my interpretation is too, which means that it should be better if all of their arguments were defensive, which means that if anything that just proves that their counter interpretation is just false. If I win that their norms are bad, that means that this is an offensive interpretation that just beats back to all arguments. You can't be like, oh, I should have read theory against your theory shells. This is a theory shell against your theory shell against your theory spikes, which means this outweighs. You also can see no cross-ups because meta theory and that's all of your arguments. Now, the reason why my argument always is, first of all, is I could not engage with the arguments at a substantive layer, which means that in the substantive layer, this guy always a magnitude because I literally couldn't do anything. Second is probability. There's no probable chance I could have made an argument that actually always and independently could have. You kicked your critique, which means it was conditional. That wasn't that either. Answer the line blank. On your counter, you see context inclusive and how there's all other infinities. These arguments are contingent on the contingent idea that might show us about TGFs. No, it's about the combination of reading TGFs and not being able to read arguments under your contents, which means I can't engage in contents. I can't engage I can't have your inclusiveness. You see Netflix, but no, it's false time scale always because your 6 minutes means that even for 3 minutes I can't make new weighing arguments under that. You say critical thinking. No, critical thinking can't happen because I can't engage in critical thinking in the 1 year or the 2 year because I can't read or new arguments in the 1 year and the 2 year get engaged under your contency. So as a result, this is a theory shell that proves that their spikes are bad and therefore you should vote them down.
Good debate.
Good debate.